Hey guys, I'm Chris.
Hey everybody, I'm Robert.
And we're the Film Flamers.
And we're bringing you a very, very special Hot Takes episode.
That's right. We actually saved up over the years from our patrons, and they sent us to New Orleans to Overlook Film Festival.
That's right. Whenever we started this Patreon account, we said that we were using this money to make our podcast better or be able to create better content. And that's exactly what we did, because we are here to talk about 12 movies that have not been released yet. So we're able to tell you about some things to look forward to in the upcoming year and beyond, just from that Patreon money.
That's right. And we were actually overall very impressed, because we thought that, there's going to be a lot of flagship movies, and then there's going to be a smattering of shit straight to DVD, and really most of these were good.
That's true. And even some of the movies that we didn't catch, we could hear people in line talking about throughout the festival. And I feel like the programming this year at the Overlook Horror Film Festival is what it's called, was pretty fucking solid.
Yeah.
So, in fact, some of the movies that people were talking about, I have a little FOMO and wish that I had seen. So
exactly.
But, there's time for all of that. But I feel like the 12 movies that we're going to talk about today are a really good start. And I hope that all of our listeners, but especially our patrons, get a little something out of this episode.
Right. And it was 12 movies over 4 days. So I think this was the first day we had 2, second day we had 3, and third day we had 5 movies, kind of back to back, which was kind of a beatdown, but enjoyable at the same time.
Yep.
And then the last day, I think it was just 2
movies. And we did other things in New Orleans, So,
oh my God. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, let's do it. I feel like Chris got to cross a major item off his list.
Yeah, well, we stayed in the Garden District, right? I feel like when most people go to New Orleans, they want to go to Bourbon or stay in the French Quarter, and rightly, we did not.
Yeah, we're old.
Yeah, well, we're at a different speed, right? Yeah. And so we're let's go antiquing. Let's get a beignet.
We're old and gay.
So we stayed off of Magazine Street in the Garden District, and the first thing we did after coming in the next day was do a garden tour, or the tour of the Garden District.
Yeah, like a walking tour.
And so the walking tour took us a surprising amount of history. Our tour guide was excellent. Yes. If anyone's interested, we can share that information. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
If you would like to take a walking tour in the Garden District, because it's beautiful and everything was growing, and all of the magnolia trees were blooming, and it was excellent. And there's so much beautiful architecture and houses. And speaking of houses, we got to visit the Anne Rice house.
That's right, her former home.
Yep. And so even though it had been repainted and everything, you kind of see a statue in the side yard that reminds you of Interview with a Vampire. And I wonder if she had placed that in afterwards, because I think she wrote the novel actually in San Francisco. But that was amazing to see that house and walk by it and walk through those neighborhoods. We got to see Lafayette Cemetery, although not go in it because it's closed to the public currently, and learn a lot about that. And eventually made our way to the, Garden District bookstore. And I was able to, where Anne Rice could have just walked to easily and done a lot of book signings.
And she did.
And so I was able to go behind a glass door and kind of rifle through some of the stuff that she had signed. And there is a limited edition of Mimnock the Devil, which is in the Vampire Chronicles. I think it's the 4th or 5th book. And it's her favorite, I believe, and it's also my favorite of the series. And so that was special to me that it's both of our favorites, and that's something that we had in common, because it surprised most people that was her favorite. But it's kind of her odyssey, her epic, right? It's like a guided tour through heaven, hell, and purgatory by Lestat. And so it was a limited edition. Her autograph was engraved or embossed on the cover, and then it's also signed inside, and I have it. So
yeah, I was so excited when you purchased that book. I could tell, you found it. It was one of the first ones that you pulled out just because of the title, I'm sure, signed on the inside, and you're like, nope, gotta have it. And I'm good. It made me super happy that you were able to see her house, have an autographed book, and a limited edition at that, in the same moment, right? I think that was a really good day. I enjoyed the shit out of that walking tour.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of cool stuff.
But we saw all these movies. It didn't leave a whole lot of time to do other things, but we did go to the Museum of Death just because it seemed like something the Film Flamers should do in New Orleans. And I think that we can categorically say,
don't go
to it.
Obviously, we're dark people and macabre and all of that, right? And we have a fucking horror movie podcast. But I don't like the celebrity I don't know how you would say it, celebritizing
Yeah.
serial killers. And so they basically have like handwritten notes and which have nothing to do with anything, and like pictures. You could buy t-shirts with like Dahmer that says like "eat me" or like "I'm gonna eat you" or something like that on it. And it's just like, it struck me really the wrong way. In the back they've got faces of like one of the movies of Faces of Death on there, and it's like fucking music with like a slide whistle and shit, like it hit me really the wrong way, the whole fucking experience. And it was also kind of lame.
Well, and I was just expecting a little bit more. This is a museum that I've really wanted to go to for a very long time. And, based on their website and things that I've heard about it, people make it seem like there's a huge collection of things, not just about serial killers, but about death itself, or like funeral services and things like that. And I mean, I feel like there wasn't a whole lot to do in there. I feel like we were in there for like 20 minutes tops.
And it cost us like $18 a person or something like that.
Yeah, it's just not. I mean, like, I don't know. It also kind of rubbed me the wrong way for maybe some different reasons, but I don't know. I mean, like, if you're in a city like New Orleans and there's so much culture and history, and there's lots of like other macabre-esque things to do, like I wouldn't go to this particular museum.
I just don't like celebrating the names. It's like, I was talking with you right after, and I'm like, with all these like school shootings and all these shooters like manifestos and all that bullshit and their name and face plastered everywhere in the 24-hour news cycle for weeks. I'm like, we need to start treating them like we treat hurricanes and just like give them a name and move on. Don't show their picture, because we're essentially making them celebrities, and they know that's going to happen. That's part of why they do it.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like we've talked about that museum enough. I mean, just honestly, but we also, I mean, like we walked around Bourbon Street, we had beignets. I mean, we did other things besides watch movies, but ultimately like the movies were the bulk of our time for sure.
We did have some nasty hypotheticals. We were trying to be just as, stupid as the Museum of Death because we were going to open a restaurant next to it, right?
Yeah, can we say that at that restaurant?
We're going to try and open a restaurant next to the Museum of Death called John Beignet Ramsey's.
Don't come for us. But if you're laughing about it, come for us.
John Beignet Ramsey's.
John Beignet Ramsey's. Oh my God. I feel that's a fantastic business plan. Well, do you want to get into this a little bit?
Let's do it.
So we're going to talk about these movies sort of in the order that we saw them, right? And again, this film festival is called the Overlook Film Festival. It's been in operation for many years, but they had taken 2 years off because of COVID. And this is the first time, since 2019 that they have had an in-person festival. They did have a little online iteration a couple years ago where they partnered with some other horror fests around the country, and they gave us some online options to watch. So I was a part of that.
Yeah, and we did a hot take on that, I believe.
Yep. And so, but we were happy to go in person. They showed all these movies at the Britannia Theater, right? And there's two of these. So, right, one of the oldest theaters in New Orleans, at least an operational movie theater, is called Britannia on Britannia Street, sort of like close to the college. And they opened up this like multiplex of sorts in this high-end mall that's in the Central Business District.
Yeah, it's the Canal Place Mall. And it was on like the fifth floor or the third floor, of this mall. It's small, but it's in the Central Business District, right next to kind of the walking distance of the French Quarter, and then, it was kind of interesting. Like there were some problems with this festival, and I don't know the whole story, and I likely never will. But I feel like a lot of the problems that were had were because of the venue. Overall,
I mean, if we're talking about the festival itself and the way it was ran, like I was mostly happy with it. Yeah. And I liked the theater, you know what I mean? Like the chairs were comfortable enough, right? Which is we talked about before, going to like conventions and things like that. So, I mean, we had that. It was a good theater going experience.
And we need to actually talk about the films. So let's start with our first film.
That's right. So the opening night feature presentation was Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon. It was the only time that this movie was shown during the festival. So we had to make sure that we caught it, and we did. So this movie should be released theatrically sometime this year, is what they say on its IMDb page and on its Wikipedia page. So.
Yeah, and whether that's going to be a week before it goes to streaming, I don't know. But for Oscar contention, you have to have your movie screen at least a week.
Prior to.
Yeah, I'm sure if it goes well, they would continue it. But a lot of it's just to dot their I's and cross their T's by having a theatrical release of some kind.
So this movie stars Kate Hudson, of all people. And I thought she did a very, very good job in this movie. Like I was really pleased by her. It also stars a relative newcomer called Jong-seo. She's a Korean actress.
And Ed Skrein, who you might remember from Deadpool as the main bad guy. And he's been in, he was in that animated one by Robert Rodriguez that just came out that was produced by James Cameron.
Oh, Alita?
Alita, Battle Angel. Yeah, he was a bad guy in that. And I usually see him as like the British bad guy, right? But in this, he was like fucking Cajun ghetto. And it was awesome to see him so different. And Kate Hudson was the most different I've ever seen her. Yeah. But anyway, we should talk about the kind of premise behind this probably.
Right. So essentially, this movie is about a young woman who is in a mental institution, and really no one knows a lot of her background, right?
Yeah, her name is Mona Lee, which is where Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon comes from.
And apparently she has a superpower of sorts where she can sort of control people's actions.
Yeah, it
mentally.
seems like from eye to eye contact, she can kind of like do, interpretive dance and basically make you do whatever the fuck she wants.
She escapes this mental institution, and the movie takes place in New Orleans. So she befriends Kate Hudson, or Kate Hudson befriends her, maybe not for the best of reasons. And she sort of has to, come to terms with her power and people around her and being around people and wanting to live her life, right? This movie was directed by Amipour, and hopefully people know her name because she directed a very, very good horror movie called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And it's one that I loved very, very much. And so I was really excited to see this movie just based on the director alone.
Yeah, same.
Although, honestly, we walked out of the theater and it's not like I didn't dislike the movie. I also didn't love it, but I didn't feel that it was really a horror film. I think it was barely horror adjacent.
They could have done so much more. They could have gone more into like wacky territory and had fun with it. Because people are her puppets, essentially, but she's not, that's not the story they're telling. Right. And so they played it a little too serious, I think. And they also, they could have gone more horror or they could have gone more wacky, but it's neither. And it's kind of like a slow burn drama with fun stuff that happens every once in a while. And I don't know, we both give it about a 3-star.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend seeing it alone for Ed Skrein's and Kate Hudson's performance because they're amazing. But other than that, it's kind of a pass for me.
Yeah, and I kind of agree. I feel like there were some funny moments. I laughed, but Chris is right. I think the number one reason to see this movie, at least for me, is Kate Hudson. I thought that Kate Hudson did an excellent job. I haven't seen her in a lot of things lately, and I like Kate Hudson, and I like it when she does sort of like genre work, things like Skeleton Key and whatnot. And so, I felt like her performance was excellent in this movie. And it's not a terrible way to start the festival, and also, obviously, these movies have not been released yet. Like every single one of them, well, with the exception of the next movie we're going to talk about, has not been released yet. And so we're going to try really hard not to spoil some of these things. So it may sound vague, but these are actually literally just hot takes. But yeah, so Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon, an official 3-star rating from the Film Flamer. So, that's... check it out at your own risk, maybe.
Yeah. Now, again, I want to say most of these movies are what we would describe as good, or even excellent. And so we're just going to start getting into some of them now, essentially, with Watcher, right? And I believe this has been picked up by Shudder.
Yes, this is a Shudder film, although there is no official release date as to when it will start streaming on Shudder. However, it is playing currently theatrically in a very limited kind of run. It could spread to a much wider release in the upcoming weeks, but right now I think larger cities should be showing Watcher.
And it did well, right? And it was like in these like select cities, and it had made it like over $1 million or something.
Yep, it made over $1 million. And so this movie technically is sort of like produced and released by IFC Midnight and Shudder, and it's going to turn out to be IFC.
So not just produced, but not just distributed, but also produced by. Correct. So they had a deal. Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like, and according to an article I read, it's going to be the biggest opening for any IFC Midnight movie yet.
Interesting. I'm wondering if this is part of the program where Shudder does like every year they pick like a handful of minority directors, whether they be like women or people of color or sexual identity or anything like that, and they kind of give them a chance. And so maybe this was part of what Chloe Okuno, who's the director of this, she had done a short called Slut, and then she also did a part of VHS 94.
Yep.
But other than that, she hadn't done a feature.
No, it's her feature debut. This movie played at Sundance as well, and it got some pretty high praise out of Sundance, which really helped cement its release time, right? So, I mean, this is pretty quick out of Sundance. This movie got this release. It stars Maika Monroe, who you all would probably know from movies like It Follows and what is that really good movie with the guy from Downton Abbey?
The Guest?
The Guest. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I love The Guest.
Me too.
Yeah. And so anyway, I really love that actress. I think she's always great.
Agreed.
That's Maika Monroe. And then, of course, Gorman, who's been in a lot of British TV and then some movies like recently he's been in a lot of franchises, and so you might actually recognize him. But this is essentially about, Stranger in a Strange Land, right? And so her, I guess, fiance or husband is in marketing, and he happens to have a Romanian mother and so can speak Romanian from his childhood. And so they essentially ask him to go to Romania to fill this office slot for this marketing company. And of course, she doesn't speak Romanian. It's kind of like The Grudge in that way, where it has this other sense of claustrophobia in an open space, which I love because it just makes you so vulnerable wherever you go when you can't understand or speak a language or ask for help in many ways. And so essentially what she does is she has to stay home all day while her husband's working. And she notices, especially during the evenings, that there's a man across the street in an apartment complex or apartment building, I would say a high rise like she is in, always looking in her window.
Watching
Can't quite
her.
see his visage,
Nope.
but almost like is, and they kind of hang a lantern on this. He kind of looks almost like Dracula-like, pale face, dark hair, and she starts getting followed and, the rest is history. I don't want to spoil anything, but this is definitely, a tense building, creeping, wonderfully atmospheric film that I would highly recommend. And we both, I think, really, really appreciated this film, and we gave it 4 stars collectively.
Yeah. So the official Film Flammers rating for this is 4 stars. I thought this movie was excellent, and I thought that her performance was really, really good. There's some aspects to this movie that I really like you were just talking about, Stranger in a Strange Land, Fish Out of Water. And there's a lot of Romanian language in this movie, but nary a subtitle to be seen, right?
Yep.
And so the audience is really starting to feel just as trapped in these open spaces, and I jumped several times. I thought this movie was incredibly scary, and the atmosphere is thick.
Well crafted.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good movie. And you can see it now. So, I mean, if this is playing near you, go see this movie, pay for it. It's the feature debut from a good voice in horror, Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what most people think of the ending. I think both of us had some issues with the ending, but overall it ends well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's a really well-crafted thriller.
We took umbrage. So next up, we actually had a replacement film, right? Because we were in line for Deadstream, and we had to basically pick another movie that was going to start around the same time so we wouldn't miss the next one we were going to see. And so we were going to see Deadstream, but we saw a movie called Zalava, which I believe will be streaming in September of 2022.
Yes.
This year. Directed by Arsalan Amiri. And we did not like this film. And we both rated it about 2 stars.
Yeah.
This is the one we did not like.
Yeah, this is out of the 12 movies, that we're going to be talking about, this is the one we liked the very, very least. Essentially, this movie is Iranian, and it takes place pre-revolution. So we're talking the 70s.
1978, yeah.
Yeah. And, there's outposts and villages and soldiers assigned to them. And this one particular village every year has to fight off a demon, sort of have an exorcist come in and, expel this demon so they can have crops and livestock. And this particular year, the exorcist gets arrested, and the soldier who's involved, or in charge of that area, has to sort of come to terms with not only the religion in that place or his own expectations or disbeliefs about what's going on.
It was a statement about the damage to a society of supernatural paranoia or belief, and the harm that religion can do, right? And so like to get rid of some of these demons, they have to shoot you in the leg. And there's like amputees in this town because of that. People are falling off ledges because they're, being shot to death, or, they're snake oil salesmen that are coming in as exorcists that may or may not believe in what they're doing. They're trying to catch these things in jars, but the whole thing is like, it feels like it's supposed to be a statement on the hyper-religious environment of Iran, and what kind of damage it can do. But they're focusing on this specific outpost that is gypsies that had come to Iran from outside, and that this their beliefs rather than the wider one. And so the message is kind of muddy there, and the disconnect is a misfire. They had a lot of chances to do subtle supernatural to make it like, is it not real? But they totally walk away from that. And the whole movie is basically like, what are these crazy people going to do next? And, I walked away thinking like that whole town should just be like a nuked from orbit, like, come on.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
I was bored.
Yeah.
I fell asleep for at least 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
I was almost there. So
I don't know what happened in that 5 minutes, but it couldn't have been very good because the rest of the movie wasn't. It's just a really boring movie. And the things that I had read online about it, it was critically acclaimed, out of Iran and other places that it's played.
A lot of people really love it.
Yeah, people were talking about how much they loved it at the festival. And I was just like, God, did we watch the same movie? Well,
I heard a couple people also saying kind of the same thing we were.
Okay, good.
I didn't hear many good things.
Obviously, film is subjective.
Yeah, a lot of people on Letterboxd were like, hey, this is I-horror, and I want them to do it like kind of like J-horror, like Japan horror. This is like Iranian, and like they're trying to say like, give us more of this, please. Like this is like a unique face of horror. A unique voice in horror, and it'd be interesting to see more things like this. And I would agree with that, but make it a little bit hit closer to home. Like, it was so far from what you were trying to put a point on, as far as I know, and I'm assuming that it just did not hit the mark for me at all, narratively, thematically, or anything.
Agreed. So that was kind of a misfire in the festival, but we moved straight from Zalava into a movie that Chris and I think both wanted to see, just based on the way it looked and certainly based on a particular actress in it. And we watched a movie called The Cow,
which should be releasing in July.
Yes. It doesn't say if it's going to be a theatrical release or a streaming release. I can only assume for most of these movies, dedicated streaming or at least VOD.
Yeah. And so I think this is mostly a debut by director Eli Horowitz, but the cast obviously is led by Wynona Ryder, but also has Dermot Mulroney, if you remember from Copycat, and a number of other things. And it's actually a really, really well acted, kind of well scripted cast and story. Led by Wynona Ryder, but also Dermot Mulroney, and like two kind of kids in it, like 20s maybe.
Yeah,
especially Brianne too. I'm not sure how to say her name.
I think
but she was excellent, and John Galllagher Jr. as Wynona's younger boyfriend.
So essentially, this movie is about a middle-aged woman dating a younger student of hers, and they go off to this cabin. And there's another couple already staying at the cabin.
Younger student meaning like he's 36.
Right.
But
younger than her in any
14 years.
They go to this cabin. There's already a couple staying there. They agree to share the cabin for the night. And she wakes up the next day, and her boyfriend has sort of like absconded with the female portion of that other couple.
Yeah.
Right. And so Wynona is thinking about it weeks later, or at least a week later, and she decides that she wants to sort of track down this woman and talk to her and at least get an idea of why her boyfriend left.
Yeah.
Right?
Ran away with her.
And it creates this whole mystery in this movie. And
there's a lot of out of order kind of Tarantino editing going on here, where we kind of fit the pieces together.
Yeah.
And it explains every single little thing, but I thought it ended well, and you'll very much understand what the meaning of the cow is by the time you end it. And it's not the animal. Spoiler alert. But I thought it was good. I'd watch it again. I think collectively we rated about 3.5 stars.
Yeah, and I think that's a good solid rating for this movie. I mean, Chris is right. It gives you all of the pieces to the puzzle, right? Sort of like sparsed out throughout the main narrative, but it doesn't leave anything to the imagination. Like, it gives you all the pieces. You can solve the mystery yourself, and it definitely clears it up by the end. You know, I mean, like, there's no ambiguity to this movie whatsoever, and that's fine. I like that in a suspense or mystery movie. You know what I mean? I kind of called the ending like close to it, and I mean, Wynona's great in this movie. And I think that Brianne Zhu, or whatever her name was really, really, really good. And we have already seen like trailers and posters for this young actress, like other horror movies that she's going to be in. So I say definitely check it out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Next up, we've got one of the best that we saw there, which is a movie called Resurrection.
Oh, my God.
And it's coming out, hopefully theatrically, in August of 2022. And this is directed by Andrew Semans, who did another feature called Nancy Please. And I don't know what that is. But obviously the cast here is Rebecca Hall, who has been rocketing in success recently with The Night House, which was one of the best, if not the best, horror film of, I believe, last year for both of us. And she also directed Passing, which I think was up for Oscar contention.
Well, it didn't get nominated for anything. It should have, but it was one of my favorite movies of last year, and as was The Night House. I feel like Rebecca Hall had a really, really good year last year. And this movie itself just shows you exactly like why she's such a good actress and producer. She produced this movie.
Yeah. And she's paired with Tim Roth, who is a acting heavyweight, and her daughter is played by Grace Kaufman. But essentially this is about a woman who is very successful and, very much in tune with her own power and capability and ambition, and is very successful in some sort of pharma company, and where she's some sort of executive or at least director level, and is in essentially a New York high rise, working. And you see her confidence and her poise and everything, and it's great. And she has a great relationship with her daughter, who's about to go off to college. Meanwhile, a wrench is thrown in the works because she sees someone from her past at a medical convention, essentially. And we don't know the details, but she runs like fuck. And it just turns into kind of like Invisible Man in a way, with prior trauma, slowly unveils what that trauma was, which is horrific. And, essentially ends with her trying to get her agency back in her life together, with the threat of this person essentially stalking her, even though that's not quite true. Controlling her is a better term, probably, because he doesn't have to basically lift a finger. She's her emotional state is essentially her own worst enemy in this, I think, because there's a lot of the trauma that happens there, like in Invisible Man, where the ending kind of earns it very specifically, to having gone through all the trauma that we had to go through as an audience to get to that ending. The ends had justified the means. In this film, I personally felt like the ends did not really justify the means, but it was still such a well-crafted, well-constructed, well-acted film that I cannot help but recommend the fuck out of it. And together, I believe we gave it a 4.5.
This was my favorite movie in the festival. Like, I really, really enjoyed this movie so much. I think that her performance was fucking masterful, as is Tim Roth's. As we were leaving the theater, other theater goers, one guy in particular was sort of shouting to everybody, like, she needs to be nominated for an Oscar, and I was walking by him while he was screeching that. And I was just like, I agree. I also feel like Tim Roth should get some sort of nomination for this. And it is being released theatrically, and I think VOD shortly after that. So it has that chance, you know what I mean? But this movie is excellent, and it's a lot of different things put into one film. Like, it's a crazy ride, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I feel like, watch a trailer if you want to or whatever, but this is one of those things you just go into it blind. Like, don't read anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, do yourself a service and just watch the movie. Yeah. Like, don't do any homework beforehand. You can trust us on this one. Like,
I don't know how I would construct a trigger warning for this, but there is some shocking stuff.
Yeah, there is.
But I feel like it's fairly safe. Because just shocking, but
I mean, it's shocking only because, like, I didn't see some of it coming, and like when it's presented to you, and like I was literally shocked by it. Essentially, is what we're saying. You know what I mean? So I mean, like, it's a shocking movie, but it's really, really good. I wholeheartedly recommend it for sure. That was it for day 2 of us. We started day 3 with a movie that was a world premiere shown at Overlook, meaning that we were one of the very first people to see this movie. And it was called Who Invited Them?
Right. And this is directed by Duncan Birmingham, who was present.
Right.
And kind of introduced the film. And the cast was led by Ryan Hansen and Melissa Tang as the couple who are essentially doing a housewarming party. They just bought a home in the Hollywood Hills, kind of similar to The Invitation. And Timothy Granaderos and Perry Mattfeld in a star-making performance.
Agreed.
Are the polite home intruders, we'll say. This is a polite home intrusion movie. Or home invasion movie, I guess you'd say.
So this couple is throwing a housewarming party. There's a little bit of maybe a true crimey past to the home that they live in, although part of that couple doesn't know about it really. And these people have sort of crashed after the housewarming party is over and are sort of convinced to stick around for a drink, right? And then shit really starts to go a little bonkers.
Yeah, so this is a slow dread type of situation, but it's also funny as fuck.
Yes.
And I have to, like, of all the movies, like, if you're going to watch something fun, especially with friends or something, like, Who Invited Them is just great.
Yeah, because I was laughing my ass off. And so were you. I mean, like, we were, like, chuckling out loud. And the audience was too, you know? Like, it was a funny movie.
It takes a little bit to get its legs, right? It's like there's some script weirdness or some acting weirdness kind of at the beginning where it's kind of, it feels a little forced. And then it's just like, it's more and more comfortable as it goes through. And they must have shot this in order, you know? And so... And why not? Because everything is in essentially one location, you know, which is their house. And so it just kind of like unfolds and you learn more and you kind of guess what's going to happen, you know, but it doesn't matter because it's such a fun fucking ride.
Right. And when he says a star-making turn by Perry Mattfeld, he's not joking. This woman does such a good job in this movie. She's just hilarious. She has a presence to her. And like, I think that we are both expecting like really great things from this actress. At least I hope so.
She reminds me of Alexis from Schitt's Creek, but also kind of the looks of
Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah. Right. And so, but she was incredibly eloquent and quirky all at the same time. Not what you'd expect from, you know, someone just like coming out into a first feature film. But she was amazing.
She was. I mean, she was effortlessly funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like her delivery is just excellent in these like blink and you miss it jokes. Like I feel like out of all the movies that we saw at the festival, this is one that I would probably watch the most often. Yeah. Right. Because it is a good time. I feel like I would show this to just about anybody. People who didn't like horror movies, I'd be like, you know what? We're going to sit and watch this because there's some increasing dread going on, but it's like cut with these jokes and it's just such a good movie.
You almost don't care that they're in mortal danger, you know?
Right. I mean, like you're all along for the ride. And I mean, like it does take some turns toward the end, you know, into a more like straightforward horror territory, but the ride to it is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's no official release date that I could see anywhere online for this. I couldn't even find a
fucking trailer because I was wanting to show Matt when I got home.
There's not. I mean, like this movie, I think it was recently finished. Like we literally were the first audience to watch this movie. He said in his intro that he had showed it to the actors before he got to New Orleans, but we were the first people to see this. Like there's nothing about its release date. There is no trailer for this yet. All that I could find in sort of a journalistic way was an article in the Hollywood Reporter talking about its creation. But the director seems like a really nice guy. He's done a lot of producing work, not a lot of directing work as far as I can tell. But hopefully, I mean, just like for you listeners, like we've reached out to him on Twitter and have a conversation started. And I really, really would like to have him on the show to at least talk about like this movie itself. And especially if we could get that actress on, I would love to talk to her too.
Or any of them, really. I'd love to hear how he cast it or how it was cast and how they found, you know. But anyway, we can't say enough good things about it. I guess our overall rating is 4 stars. Yeah. But I feel like that might trickle up if we continue to like it on rewatches, if it ever comes out.
I could totally see that happening for sure.
Next up, we have The Summoned. Should be released in July of 2022. Again, don't know if it's going to be theatrically limited or if it's going to be directly to streaming. I would assume, based on what we thought about it. This was our other kind of not great film that we saw. We combined rating of 2 stars. Directed by Mark Meir, with a cast of Emma Fitzpatrick, J. Quentin Johnson, and Angela Gullner. You might recognize them from several different roles and different things, depending on who they are. But essentially, this is rich people going off to a retreat in a very small group, 4 people. One of which is not famous, which is the boyfriend from like a Taylor Swift, like a character, who's essentially big in music, and kind of goes downhill from there. The first act is kind of interesting and intriguing, but it's kind of like Ready or Not and Get Out, kind of a combined, and it feels like try hard. It feels like it was trying to capitalize on those kind of themes, and then it just fell flat for me. And that's about all I want to say about it. It just wasn't very good.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, there were some funny moments to it, I guess, right? Like it was trying hard to be a lot of different kinds of things.
Yeah, Angela Gullner was amazing in it. She was funny. Yeah, she was the relief anyway, but
she was like a mean girl actress, you know, and there's just a lot going on in this movie and none of it really works, you know, like it's
missing a whole act, really. It gets like the final act, like right as things are enveloping, and then it's just like, what? Could we have some sort of pause for breath or exposition or something? Because I don't care about any of the characters in this fucking movie.
I really don't. Even the ones that we're supposed to, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Kind of a misstep, but I mean, honestly, like out of 12 movies, if there's 2.
It felt like someone designed this movie based on the numbers and then just like, you know, colored by numbers to capitalize on the things that have been coming out by Jordan Peele, you know, et cetera, and then just fucking a studio just churned this fucking out, you know, like an independent, like, oh, let's take advantage of it. And it wasn't actually something someone was passionate about. That's what it feels like.
And this was also a world premiere. So, I mean, like it played at Overlook for the first time, you know, no one else has seen it before. But it's coming out fairly quickly. So if they happen to catch a trailer, maybe we'll like post it somewhere on social media so you can see. And obviously, like we said, or like we always say, like if you see a movie and you disagree with us, again, we'd like to know. So if you happen to catch The Summon when it comes out, please.
Yeah, let us know if you loved it.
Yeah. After that, we watched some queer horror in a film called Swallowed.
Yeah, and this was directed by Carter Smith, who was present. And I believe most of the cast was there as well, led by Jose Colin and Cooper Koch and Jenna Malone, who I always fucking love, and Mark Patton, which was so great to see him.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, he was in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 as kind of the queer-coded character. And then he was essentially, blacklisted in Hollywood for the reaction to that queer coding. And for years and decades, there's a documentary about it, right? And so it was really fun to see him kind of chewing up the scenery in a really good and competent way in this movie. But this is essentially about, lifelong best friends. One is queer and the other is quote unquote not. And you probably heard my air quotes because I hit the microphone. One of them, the queer one, got a job in porn and is going to move to California. But they're, I guess, somewhere up north, because when they talk about let's bring some drugs across the border, I always assume that's Mexico.
No, it's Canada.
It's Canada.
They're in Maine.
Yeah. And so essentially this guy, his best friend, as part of a goodbye, wants to give him cash because this kid's got nothing. He's going to join the porn industry and he's thinking he's going to get, eaten alive up there without any kind of resource. So he wants to give him, and this whole deal to bring a package, across the border is going to give him like something like $16,000, good chunk of change, to get started somewhere. And so they embark on their journey. They meet Jenna Malone. Things go downhill. They have to swallow the drugs, with Jose having to the straight one, quote unquote straight one, having to swallow the bulk of it, and the other one having to swallow a little bit. Things go south from there. One of the bags explode, and wacky hijinks ensue, like numb legs and hard cocks.
Yeah, so this movie is fucking hella queer. I mean, we'll say, like, the two leads obviously have a past relationship. They're very good friends. There's a lot of like sexual tension going on in their relationship.
Yeah, they love each other.
They love each other. You know what I mean? For all intents and purposes, either as friends or more, it doesn't matter, right? Half the reason why I like this movie and like other gay horror films is that there's not a whole lot of explanation about being gay or not. The only explanation they talk about is their relationship with each other. And there's this like, will they or won't they kind of aspect to it. You know what I mean? But that's it. This movie is just like overwhelmingly gay. As is the director. I mean, like Carter Smith directed The Ruins, which is a great horror film.
Oh, yeah. I love the shit out of it. You said the book was better.
The book is so good.
It also has Jenna Malone in it.
Yeah.
And I always loved Jenna fucking Malone.
And so there's also not really a release date for this. The director, when introducing his film, said that it had been made for quite some time. And I believe that this played at Fantastic Fest or South by Southwest, something in Austin
But
beforehand.
no one's picking it up.
Yeah, I mean, and it may have been picked up or not, but he said, he was like, when we were making this movie, I was never sure if it was going to be shown to audiences, you know? And so I really liked it. I thought it was good. It has some surprising moments to it. Like it's not quite what you think it is sometimes.
Yeah, I felt like I wanted different things to happen thematically to like fill the emotional ride, you know, but because the story they're trying to tell doesn't really have a so what because of some things that happen. Mm-hmm. It's a fun ride and it's great to see, you know, Mark Patton. It's great to see, you know, things that we don't normally see, you know, and exploring a gay straight relationship and friendship. And, you know, it's always fun to see the very rare hard cock in a horror movie.
Oh, and it's a hard cock.
However prosthetic-y it was. You know, and there's some interesting stuff happening film-wise. I think I rated it a little bit lower than you and you rated it a little higher, but we evened out at about 4 stars. So it's definitely worth seeing if you're into queer horror. It was very competently made because this is a competent director.
For sure.
And competent actors for sure.
And I cried twice. You know what I mean? So that's saying something, right? Yeah. I really like movies that like sort of run a gamut of emotion, and this did. There's some funny parts to it. There's some super queer parts to it. It's also touching and tender.
But it's not as queer as it really made out to be. Like they were passing around these posters that are straight up pornographic.
Oh yeah.
That is not in the movie, you know?
No.
And so I feel like the way they're marketing it is probably incorrect. You know, but I guess we'll have to see.
I mean, they're certainly going for an audience.
They were trying to create buzz with that poster and get people in there, but
it worked. It was a full theater, right?
Well, maybe. I don't remember.
I mean, it was pretty full.
Okay.
Because that was the first time they were showing it at this particular festival. But yeah, I mean, I for sure when this movie, and I have no doubt that eventually it will be released. You know what I mean, in some form or fashion. So I definitely think that you should check this one out for sure.
Yeah. So next up, we've got the biggest surprise for us, probably. Right. And that's the Black Phone. Because if you recall, if you are a dedicated listener, and several Shooting the Flames ago, we talked about the trailer for the Black Phone, which we shit on.
Yeah.
And that trailer is still shitty because it just looks basic as fuck. It looks like it's trying to capitalize on it. But if you like dig a little deeper, right? This is actually written by or based on a story by Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King. Right. And so it's also directed by a really good director, Scott Derrickson, who we should have given the benefit of the doubt. He did Doctor Strange, Sinister, and Exorcism of Emily Rose. I'm less of a fan of Sinister. The first half of it is excellent film horror for me. And Exorcism of Emily Rose is, I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure, but I fucking love it. And of course, Doctor Strange is amazing. You know, so this is a good director. And of course, the cast is Ethan Hawke, led by Ethan Hawke as the main bad guy. The story is told in the trailer. There's no big reveals there. Mason Thames is the kid that he takes, and Madeline McGraw as his little sister, who was amazing in this.
Yes, she was so good.
But it's the construction of this movie that is so well. It's the execution. It's very Spielbergian. It feels like a fucking Spielberg movie, but more horror, you know, and it feels like the way The Lovely Bones should have been or something, you know, and that's what I would more describe it to versus It. Mm-hmm. I feel like the It stuff kind of starts and ends with the balloons, and that's it.
Yeah. Stop comparing this movie to It.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was scrolling through Letterboxd looking at reviews for this, and everything was like, oh, it's It. And I'm like, it's not though. I mean, like
it's not at all.
There's children in peril. It's sort of a period piece. You know what I mean? I was like, and that's kind of where it ends.
And the supernatural stuff has nothing to do with the bad guy, actually.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, the supernatural stuff is kind of almost, well, it's not an afterthought. It's very much present in the movie, but it's just not treated the same way. Yeah. I was surprised as hell at how much I really enjoyed this movie.
Well paced, super well constructed. I mean, the trailer just doesn't do it justice. The trailer's not holding anything close to the chest. It is what it is. but it just looked so by the numbers. And when we saw the actual film, it was just a really good fucking movie, well put together. And so our combined score is a 4.5, and it's one of the highest of this whole theater. And some of this might be just our shock, and we're like, oh my god, it's actually good, and we overrate it, so that might slip down. But really, we want to tell everyone this is worth seeing in the theater.
Yeah, I mean, it really, really is. And, you know, and I was not expected to say that. Like, we almost didn't even put it on our schedule because we were like, oh, we're not excited about this movie. We know what this movie is.
Mainstream.
Yeah, we're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then I think, you know, by both of us talking and trying to pick out the movies we were going to watch, we're like, well, why not? You know what I mean? If we hate it, we already knew we were going to hate it, and we'll at least get to see it before other people do and be able to give this kind of hot take on this episode. And so now we can fully go back and say, like, it's good. It's really, really good. This is what we need from mainstream horror. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I feel like audiences will enjoy this movie as a whole.
Yeah.
And I hope that it makes money. And I hope that people talk about it. You know what I mean? Because it's really, really good. Shockingly good.
Yeah. And we'll list all of these movies in the show notes, by the way.
After we watched The Black Phone, we went into our 5th movie of
the day.
And we saw something called She Will.
Right. And this is a directorial debut from Charlotte Colbert. And this is going to come out, I'm guessing, streaming in July. And this actually has one of my favorite actresses in it, Alice Krige, who played the Borg Queen, and she was in Silent Hill as the bad guy. She was in Hansel and Gretel as the witch. She's kind of cast in those kind of roles these days, which is kind of sad. But she's so good at it. And also stars Coda Eberhardt and Rupert Everett. Randomly.
Yeah, unrecognizable, though, because we knew that he was in this, and I was watching the movie, and I was just like, which one's Rupert Everett? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard to pick him out, but eventually I think we did.
Yeah. If you're going to watch any horror retreat movie at this festival, watch She Will. It's not perfect. It's a slow burn. There's a lot of meaning kind of wrapped in, but most of all, it's a woman like grappling with aging and her womanhood. She just had a double mastectomy, and she's trying to go out into the wilderness and be alone and heal. And she has a helper played by Coda Eberhardt, who does an amazing job, and essentially is like connecting to her inner witchiness or whatever, because she's going off in this, I think it's Scotland or somewhere, and there's a lot of peat, right? And so peat itself plays a big role in this as part of like the earth, empowering witches. And a lot of this is like ambiguous and kind of, you see like a woman throughout the movie on her bike that's like going around, her motorcycle essentially, that's followed by a fox who is, essentially like her familiar, so there's a lot of stuff, kind of subtle supernatural stuff and not so subtle supernatural stuff. I wish that, the trauma of this woman, we forgot to mention that Malcolm McDowell is in this.
That's true.
But she's dealing with her trauma, and that's most of the movie is like trauma revenge. But that's my main qualm with this movie is this all that this woman is? She's had a whole fucking life besides that trauma, and it's like, I wanted it to kind of go and more into like dealing with, lost womanhood and what that means to her, looking back on her whole life, not just one particular traumatic point of her childhood when she was first starting her career, but it's an interesting ride and it's well done. The soundtrack was done by Clint Mansell, is not available, but it was a fucking amazing. So it's worth just watching this movie for the atmosphere and the trip and the music, and some great acting turns.
Yeah, this movie is visually stunning,
but it's very folky too.
Yeah, I mean, think more Wicca than witch. You know what I mean? Like it's very centered on like the earth and nature, right? It's
in
not
horrific ways.
It's not exactly like a witchcraft kind of thing. You know what I mean? It was an interesting movie. It was really pretty to look at. Alice Krige did a very, very good job in it. And I mean, I liked it. I did. I feel like after watching 5 movies back to back to back, like it was neat to look at. I needed a little bit more.
It was the last movie of the night of our biggest day, where we just watched 4 movies back to back, and we were kind of done. And so maybe given this movie a little more space, I'd enjoy it more. But overall, we both gave it 3.5 essentially. So it's still worth seeing if you come across it. You want to see something like folk horror, modern folk horror, having to do with like examining femininity and things like that.
And it's important to say this movie is already very popular in the UK. Like, it was very successful. People really responded to it over there, and it's making its way to other places, North America specifically, right? Like we just said, it'll be out very, very soon. So I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see how people in America react to this movie and if people talk about it. But I mean, for sure, I think that we agree that you should check this movie out.
Yet another one example of Biddy, Psycho Biddy, right?
Mm-hmm. Like X, right?
Yeah, or any of these, like, you could even say Sunset Boulevard. A lot of those, like the aging woman stories grappling with her age and her history and what's going on. It's part of this genre, which is always fucking interesting. But, I hate that it's named Psycho Biddy, but
we'll come up with something different to call it. I don't know. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm actually very interested if our listeners watch these movies and what they think of them. We're going to have to like circle back maybe sometimes and like remind you guys that we've talked about these before when they start to be released. You know what I mean? Just in case. But moving on from that, we went into one of the movies that I really thought was great. It was one of my favorites of the festival. And Chris liked it a lot too, I think. And it's a movie called Hypochondriac.
Yes. And theoretically, this will be on VOD in August.
It'll have a limited theatrical run at the end of July, but VOD for sure in August.
And this is directed by Addison Hyman, who was very present throughout the entire festival. Yeah. And he would talk with people and kind of befriend them, and he would speak before the theater. He's obviously not media trained and is kind of unsure, but this is a story about him and his life. Kind of aggrandized, Hollywoodized, hyperbolic, but still very, very interesting. And essentially it's him dealing with the trauma of the past. Mm-hmm. And the past coming to the present, and him kind of inheriting like generational trauma in the form of psychosis, essentially from his mother. So essentially this is a story about his own trauma. We found out that the gay relationship in it, because he's gay, it felt really good in a way that Swallow didn't, because this is very incidentally gay. He just happens to be gay. It's not part of the story. That the trauma that he has is not anything to do with the fact that he's gay. But there's trauma happening that has reverberations with his relationship, which was really beautiful to see through. I think I got teary-eyed, and you certainly cried a few times in this.
Oh, I cried a lot. My eyes hurt by the end of this movie.
There's some kind of scary things that happen. There's some jumps, but mostly it's really about trauma, and it also has one of the more realistic gay sex scenes I've seen in a movie. Not that it shows much or anything, but it's just a little bit more, I don't know, in the realm of realism versus like the Brokeback spit in your hand and fuck a can of beans type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're watching this movie and you're essentially watching a person have a breakdown, a mental breakdown, right? And I feel like this movie gives a really good visual representation of what that might feel like, I mean, obviously, I don't have a lot of point of reference for this, but I mean, it seemed honest, it seemed genuine, and its approach to its subject matter. I had a very strong emotional reaction to this movie and a very strong emotional connection to its main character, right? Having not experienced anything like that in my life. And I think that says something about this movie and its filmmaker. I feel like if a writer, director, producer, whatever he did in this movie, all those things, is really coming from a place of like self-discovery, or even just like mining things from your past in a way to like help yourself move forward.
It had a lot to say about trauma. It had a lot to say about mental health. It had a lot to say about relationships with family and romantic.
Right.
And so this is by far the movie that I thought about the most after seeing it. And I didn't rate it that highly because I thought there was some pacing issues, like just like it could be trimmed all across the board to be a little bit tighter, so that the cuts and turns in the film were a little bit more, would hit a little bit harder maybe. But I feel like that's kind of a nitpick because obviously this is still, we're rating 4+ stars.
Yes.
Combined score. And this is something that I'm really kind of dying to show my partner.
Yeah.
And it's really good. Like we had a long talk after we watched this, and I talked about my, history with mental illness in the form of panic disorder, PTSD, from a near-death experience, and that I had years and years and years ago. And, it kind of reminded me of the way that he showed and portrayed that. And it hit home a lot, and it was very honest portrayal of a lot of it. And so I feel like it's one of those movies that's just as good as it is important for many reasons. And it's fun. It's funny too.
Yeah. I mean, I was laughing, and the acting in this movie is really, really good. I mean, I
By
really
Zach Vila and Devin Gray, principally. Yeah.
right, and I think the woman who played his mother did a very excellent job.
Yeah.
This movie is good. It's just something that I would watch a lot, and I just feel very connected to it. And I want people to watch this movie, especially like queer or gay horror fans. You know what I mean? Like, this movie has some scary moments. Like, I jumped. Like, there's some visually scary moments. I mean, even the director himself said, he borrowed heavily from Donnie Darko. You know what I mean? And so you can watch this movie and it's right there in your face anyway, how similar it is, kind of.
Yeah. There's only one bit of it, otherwise it's not,
But, I really, really enjoyed this movie, and I wholeheartedly suggest y'all go check it out. You have to.
Last but not least, we saw, finally, one of the movies that we were most excited about, which is a movie called Mad God, which should be on Shudder this month.
Yep. So the last week of June, it's going to be on Shudder. And before that, it will have a very limited theatrical release.
Because it will be up for Oscars.
I hope so. So this is an animated horror movie, filmed in sort of like classic stop motion animation.
Yeah,
right?
This is directed by Phil Tippett, who is just like the towering achievement in all, he's done work from, RoboCop to Jurassic Park, all this stuff. In fact, he was working on RoboCop 2 when he started filming this. So this has been filmed over the span of 30 years and starts and stops. Mostly over the last 10, but it started way back when. And, this is like a crowning achievement of what stop motion can be, and kind of a statement piece, loosely themed. It's almost vignettes, but it's all kind of in the same kind of setting and collection of worlds or universes or realities, I guess. And so the story is kind of thin on the ground, if there at all, but it's definitely worth, especially if you take, undisclosed substances.
Yeah. So Nikki, if you're listening and you keep asking for top 10s of movies to watch under a controlled substance,
this might be number one.
This is certainly on that top 10. I mean, it's, again, a movie that's visually stunning, obviously. And I'm slowly working my way into being, a little bit more accepting of like an animated genre of film, right? It's not always my cup of tea, right? But based on things that I had heard about this movie and read about it, I was very excited to see it. And in that sense, it does not disappoint. Like, it's really neat to look at.
Yeah.
Narratively, though, I mean, you really have to put pieces together to follow the movie. And I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been trying that hard, just like relax and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. I was trying to put things together. I was constantly trying to piece things together.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it's just not there. Like you maybe on multiple viewings or reading articles about it or interviews with Phil Tippett, might, but again, like this is like a mashup.
And that's fine. I mean, even this could be subjective.
An interconnected anthology,
I mean, you and I can sit here and talk about it off mic. And the more that we talk about it and how we view things or how we feel, we could come up with our own narrative or whatever. And maybe that's what he's going for. Who the hell knows?
Big fucking Rorschach of Squelch.
Yeah. But it was really cool. It's a really cool movie. I'm glad that we watched it. I'm glad that we closed out our festival experience with this movie, because it certainly was an experience.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. And what was our combined rating on this one?
4 stars.
4 stars. So high. I think you maybe liked it a little bit more than I did.
Yeah, I mean, from a narrative standpoint or a story standpoint, I'd give it like a 2, right?
Yeah.
But from an technical achievement category, I'd give it a 5. So I'd kind of met in the middle with a 4. Like I have to kind of review this in a vacuum because it is kind of in a vacuum. It's kind of its own thing. It cannot be compared, right? And so, it's definitely something that you would watch, like stoned as fuck around a TV with friends.
For sure.
And
I mean, as far as ratings go, I mean, you have to throw in the achievement aspect to it.
And it's kind of like an exclamation point on the craft, and so it's just not used much anymore at all, if any, and
Rarely.
So, certainly not as a modern effect that you would do in a film, and so this is kind of, this is a statement from Phil Tippett saying, this is my craft. This is my art. Here it is. And this is my career. That this is like the statement of everything that this is and can be. And so for that reason alone, I have to at least give it 4 stars.
And I mean, I think a 4 star is a good rating for this movie. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
So, and again, any of you who like subscribe to Shudder already, this movie will be on there at the end of the month. Go watch it. In fact, I would say like the bulk of the movies that we watched had a Shudder bumper in front of it. So they will be on Shudder at some point.
At least half, I'd say.
Yeah. So, I mean, like Shudder's got a big stake in the game when it comes to independently filmed horror movies these days. And that's good. So, but those were the 12 movies that we watched at the Overlook Film Festival. Like Chris said, we're going to link them all in our show notes. So do some independent research. Make a list of things that you might want to watch. I mean, this is kind of a good, like, coming soon episode for you guys. Some things to look forward to.
Exactly.
But we have to do a very big special shout out to all of our patrons, past and present and future, because they were the reason why we got to do this. And if you would like to join our Patreon family, please head over to patreon.com/thefilmflamers. We have lots of bonus content for you to listen to. You get episodes early. People are always talking with each other over there. Like it's a good place to be. So go check that out.
Yeah. And as usual, like every other month or so, we have a poll for what, we're going to watch, so join the family. And thank you very, very, very much for sending us to the Overlook Film Festival, because you paid for our passes, our all access pass, and our room and board.
That's right. And we had a very good time. But next week, we are back to normal programming. We are going to be doing a deep dive into Basic Instinct,
followed by Showgirls.
That's right.
So kicking off our Paul Verhoeven summer.
That's right. We're doing a summer of Verhoeven. So stay tuned for that, because I'm ready to talk about some Basic Instinct, and I'm super ready to say Versace as much as I possibly can in the episode afterwards. Well, I think that just about wraps up this episode. In the meantime, you can still find us on social media at The Film Flamers on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
You can email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com or call our hotline at 972-666-7733. Be my mad god.
I'm swallowed.
Okay.
No.
You sure not the cow? No.
Yeah. I swallowed the cow.
Well, Robert, that's a lot of movies, and I need to go back into my sarcophagus and rest up for the next bout.
That's right. Let's head off to the sarcophagi and have some
Sean Beignet Ramsey's.
some Sean Beignet Ramsey's. Which will give me some sweet dreams.
Too soon.
We have to open this business, though.
We do.
I mean, it'll be open for
Think of the beignets.
Yeah, I know. Come for the beignets. Stay for the guilt. We'll be open for 1.2 days. And then we'll be shut down.